Melanie Stansberry thought this was a moment to shine. Take a look.
So we're not accusing people of being xenophobic and racist. They are being xenophobic and racist, including the President of the United States.
During a hearing on the Minnesota fraud case, Stansberry went off topic in an attempt to sidestep the issue. But Eli Crane countered by playing a clip of Ilhan Omar before following up with some brutal truths.
The number one thing that comes back at you is you're a racist, you're a white supremacist, the old pivot.
That's why today's video is not to be missed. So let's jump right into it.
And this, of course, comes after weeks of viral videos from a young man YouTuber who was literally creeping around daycares by himself, making claims about fraud that were not there. And then the vice president and the FBI director were retweeting these videos without even verifying if they were true, unleashing a furor of anti-immigrant and anti-Somali hate across the country. So we're not accusing people of being xenophobic and racist. They are being xenophobic and racist, including the President of the United States. And I want to say, for one, that I stand with the Somali and the immigrant community standing here today.
Honestly, you can stand with whoever you want. That's the beauty of living in a free country. But at the very least, acknowledge that large-scale fraud across public aid programs is real and documented. I promise, it wouldn't hurt you. If anything, it'd convince voters that you're keeping up the facade of being responsible with taxpayer money. And since she mentioned Nick Shirley, it's important to note that while it's not guaranteed that every daycare he mentioned is involved in fraud, CBS mentioned in one article that they visited and called several of those centers but received no responses. As for the infamous Quality Learning Center, it's now permanently closed. That's why Eli Crane took the moment to remind everyone of the scale of fraud that took place in Minnesota, and played a clip of Ilhan Omar in which she appeared to praise a restaurant involved in the Feeding Our Future scheme.
Can we play the video I have, Mr. Chairman?
And sida dadka badan ay u ogyihiin ciyaalkeena yaryar ilaa iyo number la eg 20 milyan oo ciyaal iskooley ah waxay cuntadooda ka helaan iskoolka kaliya. Marka waxaan fursad u helnay in aan sharci soo gudbino oo la dhahayo Meals Act ka aadan ugu mahadcelinaya safari in ay tahay meelaha sayti oo diyaarinooyo cunto maalin kasto dhalinyarada ciyaalkii iyo familkoodina ku taakuleynaayo cuntada sayti maalintii kaliya safari waxay cunto siisaa 2300 oo ciyaal ah iyo familkooda. Taas waa mid muhiim ah sida aad u ogtihiin dhalinyaro badan gaajo ku nool wadankaneyti ama familkooda fursad u helin in quraac qada iyo casho ay siiso. Marka waxaan u mahadcelinayaa safariyo kaleete iyo dadka badan oo maalin Ilaahay keeno fursad u qaata in ay u volunteer gareeyaan oo ay taakuleeyaan familiyalka.
For some context, this exact clip was entered into a court record in the case against Salim Saeed, who tried to explain his sudden wealth by saying, "When you make good food, people come to you." According to the DOJ, he was an owner and operator of Safari Restaurant, a site that received more than $16 million through fraud. On top of that, Omar had reportedly held her 2018 congressional victory party at this restaurant. Now, to be clear, she isn't charged with anything, and knowing someone accused of a crime does not make you guilty by association. Still, all of these facts do paint a damning picture. After Eli played this clip, he started asking Minnesota state representatives direct questions, arguing the Democrats are standing on the wrong side of history with this case. But before we play that, we have a quick message from today's sponsor. Now, in our last spotlight, we talked about how Atomic Minerals, trading as Atom on the TSXV venture and ATMMF in the US, could be positioned to help meet America's urgent demand for domestic uranium. That momentum is picking up faster than expected. The Department of Energy's $2.7 billion uranium enrichment initiative is not just another announcement. It signals a clear commitment to securing domestic supply. The market is reacting accordingly. Companies with strategic uranium assets and experienced leadership are drawing renewed attention as the reality sinks in that the United States needs reliable domestic sources. Uranium is critical for national defense, from naval reactors to advanced military systems. With Russia dominating global enrichment capacity and the U.S. importing the vast majority of its uranium, the strategic gap is obvious. And federal backing confirms the urgency. Atomic Minerals brings experience to the table. Members of its leadership team were involved in the discovery and $654 million sale of the Rough Rider deposit to Rio Tinto. With 4 uranium projects in the Colorado Plateau, the company operates in one of America's most established uranium regions. Exploration is underway, and government support for domestic uranium continues to accelerate. With federal funding, experience management, and strategic assets aligned, Atomic Minerals is positioned at the center of the shift in D.C. Click the link in the description to stay updated on this opportunity.
Mr. Hudson, are you just hearing from Republicans on this, or are Democrat constituents like, oh my God, I'm struggling to put my kids in school, struggling to make ends meet, and my tax dollars are being robbed by people, and then they're sending it all over the place, and this is complete fraud. What is going on, and why hasn't anything been done about it?
I'll give you a personal example. So my family, my in-laws in particular, are politically diverse. A lot of them vote for Democrats, and they're fairly apolitical. They're not like me, all plugged in. And so I kind of use them as a bellwether for what the people are thinking. Across the board, everybody is upset about this fraud.
And I'm guessing when you guys bring this up, whether it's to the Waltz administration, whether it's to the AG, the number one thing that comes back at you is you're a racist, you're a white supremacist.
As I stated in my opening statement, it's diversion, right? We're going to talk about personalities. We're going to talk about partisan politics. We're going to find some way to get people yelling at each other rather than looking at the problem.
Or, like you've heard my colleagues do on this panel, it's Donald Trump, baby.
Now, it's important to look at polling data to understand how voters are processing this scandal. In late January, Change Research, which is considered left-wing, did a survey focused on Minnesota's welfare fraud case, and they found that, quote, nearly 90% of voters have seen or heard reports of the story, which is good considering it's a massive scandal. Yet, when asked whether welfare programs should balance access with fraud prevention, only 19% of Democrats supported preventing fraud if it meant limiting access. Meanwhile, 74% of said programs should continue even if some fraud exists. Where do you think that comes from? Messaging plays a role, and Stansberry is just one example in a long line of Democrats who attach labels to anyone questioning where their taxpayer money is going. There's also serious financial dimensions here, and Eli Crane laid it out in detail. Let's take a look.
One thing that is so alarming is the reporting that many of these fraudulent companies are then donating the stolen money back to the same Democrats that are protecting them and advocate for these very programs. Is that correct, Mr. Hudson?
I would agree with that statement.
Well, we just had one of my Democrat colleagues said these are just opinions. You know, are these guys donating money back to Democrats?
Yes, they are.
You guys are elected officials in Minnesota, right? Are you guys aware of the reporting that some of the stolen money is getting funneled back to the Islamic terror group Al-Shabaab in Somalia? Mr. Robbins?
Yes, sir. And we have evidence of it going back as far as 2012, where a man was convicted of sending $21,000 to Al-Shabaab. In 2011, 2 Minnesota women were convicted of sending money to different groups. Someone else, we have multiple references of how the Al-Shabaab takes a cut when the money gets to Somalia through the Hawala network. So I think there's ample evidence on this and federal convictions.
When it comes to Democratic candidates receiving donations from these fraudsters, there's reporting that supports it. Although once everything becomes public, their campaign issues statements saying they'd either return the money or donate it to some other charity. As for these funds going to terrorist groups, apart from what Robbins mentioned, there's an ongoing investigation that was announced by Scott Bessent. So we'll definitely wait to whatever results they reach. But the bottom line with Minnesota and all other fraud cases nationwide is simple. We the people are simply tired of it. We're constantly reminded of how we're trillions in debt. And yet when major fraud is uncovered, it turns into a left versus right issue. Meanwhile, taxpayer dollars are lost, and public trust in government continues hitting record lows. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, keep thinking.